I was in power plants, building 797, and I saw many people standing around looking up at the television. So of course I gravitated to it and said, what's everybody looking at? And that's when I observed that one of the twin towers was smoking. And right as I saw that, we saw the aircraft hit the second building, and it was a big gasp. Couldn't believe what we were seeing, and we all immediately started saying our country is under attack. So we all departed and started heading to the office. We knew it was time to leave. We're going to be evacuated out of the facility. And we was all pondering, man, our country is going to change. Things is going to change. It was just one disbelief, but also the gravity, because I work for the Department of Defense. So how we going to respond? Is my family safe? So I remember those emotions.
My dad was actually stationed in Japan, Yokosuka, Japan. He was in the Navy. And so 9/11 actually happened that night before. So when I woke up in the morning, I went to my mom's room. I was like, Mom, why didn't you wake me up for school? And she told me, someone just hit the towers. And I was like, no one would do that. And so they were playing it on the TV at the time because we had just woke up. And sure enough, we were pretty much couldn't go anywhere that day. All the schools and everything were shut down.
I was working here at FRC at the TF-34 shop. And we was watching it on the television that we have here. Well, we saw the planes hit the towers, and my first response was, wow, we lost a lot of people, and it was just devastating to me. It was just hard to see, and it was hard to continue working also.
When I heard about it, it's like, you don't think about it actually being a World Trade Center or a building when you hear the word tower. So it's like a plane hit a radio tower or something. And then by the time I got home and it was all over the news that it was one of the World Trade Centers, it was like, wow, we are really under attack. And at the time I was stationed at up in Virginia. They had already had the base on lockdown. And I tried to go to work that night, and they had to make sure everybody was on the Alpha roster who was getting onto the base. And it was a pretty scary sequence of events that took place that day, and that's something I'll never forget.
The TF-34 rotating was actually closer near the monitor, so it was easily to see it, and the first person looked up to the monitor and saw that the towers were on fire, so it looks like something out of a movie. And so the rest of us saw that, man, what's going on? So then we realized, as we watched it, that the Twin Towers had been hit. And so it was kind of unbelievable, but there it was right there on the TV screen.
I was working at the Patuxent River Naval Base, which is about an hour south of Washington, D.C. And on CNN, there was a report of the plane hitting the towers. And so I said something to the people around me. I said, hey, it's a plane hit the World Trade Center towers. What's going on? They didn't believe me. They said, no, you must be reading it wrong, something like that. And maybe it was a small plane. I said, no, it was a passenger plane, it says. It was crazy. We've never experienced anything like that kind of an attack, here on home soil. So it was scary.
I was at home watching TV. The news popped on saying about the building on fire, saying the plane crashed, and I was like, it didn't look real, didn't look like something from a movie and everything. They kept talking. The next thing you know, you see a vision of an airplane come across the screen, like, what is that? And you're thinking it's going by the building, and boom, and it blows into the building. It's like, this Hollywood, stuff like that. Then after a while, I started sitting there and realizing when they're talking about a terror attack, and it's like, well, this is real. I guess we're in a whole nother, time in our lives right now, and the story ends that everything gets changed in America from that point on.
I was working construction, and it was in North Tampa, and we were all sitting around listening to the radio like we usually do, and they came on with the story, that we'd just been attacked, and the first plane had hit, and we didn't know what to think of it at first, and we thought maybe it's a joke or something, like it just sounded too dramatic. And then the second plane hit, and we all realized this is real. And everyone started calling home, and everyone's like, hey, is this what's going on? And that was a big reason why I joined the Navy 2 years later, and served 8 years because of it. And it was just a day you'll never forget, that I'll never forget.
I was at an aging aircraft conference in Orlando, Florida, sitting in a session, the Monday morning session, one of the first ones. Walked out for break, and my Boeing buddy came up to me as we were walking to the break room, and he said, somebody flew an airplane into the World Trade Center. And we kind of laughed, and I thought, some moron in a Cessna probably. And he goes, no, it was bigger than that. So we walked into the break room and saw people standing around in front of the television, and I stood there in somewhat of a bit of a shock watching the towers start to crumble. And then we heard others that there was a plane maybe going into the Pentagon. And I was living in Oklahoma at the time, and rental car company told me I could just keep the car, so I drove home from Orlando to Oklahoma in my rental car and dropped it off.
I was in the control center over there as a dock operator, and I was watching the TV, and all of a sudden I saw the plane coming through the thing. I said, oh my God, what is that? And then everybody said, it's the tower. They were saying it was the tower, and I was like really shocked. And I called home. I told my husband, get on the TV, what's going on? And everybody was just paranoid because we were shocked to see that. We never thought that would happen. So I don't know how everybody reacted. I reacted really because I had family over there too, and I'm like, oh my God, But they were all right. So
I was on board the USS Enterprise, CVN 65. We was actually heading down to the Cape of Africa, and that's when we saw it happen on TV. It was very dramatic. If you think about it, you got about 5,000 sailors on board, trying to keep everybody calm. We had a lot of sailors who had family in New York and Washington, D.C. So one of our sailors, that was personally my sailor, his sister was in that building, in one of the towers that came down. So trying to comfort him, kind of bring back memories for me as well, trying to comfort him, things like that, and keep him focused on the job. Because like I said, a week later, we was dropping ordnance. So it was a very dramatic moment that day.
At the time, I was still in active duty. I was working with OpNav in Washington, D.C. My office was actually down in Crystal City, sitting on the 7th floor in one of the high-rises down there. So when it all started happening, I could actually sit there and look out our windows and watch the smoke, coming from the Pentagon itself there. So it was a lot of chaos. Everybody was in total shock, obviously, and nobody was really, expecting anything obviously like this. But when it did hit, everybody that looked out the windows just in total shock of what was going on. Nobody really knew. Everybody started turning on their TVs, trying to get the latest as far as what was being reported and all. A lot of family members trying to reach their families. Cell phones, all locked up. Nobody could get coverage, and so it took people, sometimes 2-3 hours before they were able to get a hold of their families. And some folks saying, hey, we need to get out. But quite frankly, at that point in time, as we look around, it's probably the safest place to be after the initial attacks. Because there was just total shutdown of all the airspace. The only aircraft we saw flying around was some of the Air Force fighters just kind of moving around the area and all there.
So my wife and I were taking our first vacation without our daughter. She was a senior in high school at the time, and we actually were in New York City, standing outside of Fox Studios watching the news when the planes actually flew over. The first one did and hit. And we went back to our hotel room after that, and then that's when the second one hit. And we were literally about 1 mile from the Trade Center. And we actually were on top of the Trade Center the day before. We just couldn't believe it that this happened. After the first plane hit, we weren't sure, but then the second one, we knew that it was more than just an accident. We knew we were under some sort of attack. And then it turned into more or less anger and remorse. It was anger at the people who did this and remorse for the people who lost their lives.
I'm extremely proud to be a member of the United States Navy. When I look at what we achieve every day, I see a connection to why we work as hard as we do in light of events like 9/11.